A light week on the pull list led to me making some interesting choices on books I wouldn't regularly get. Let's see what I got. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week we've seen a child born of two worlds, the power struggles between monstrosities of mechanical makings, and the notion that maybe, just maybe, Magneto was right. Let's kick things off actually with that. Let's talk about Resurrection of Magneto number 4, written by Al Ewing with artwork by Luciano Vicino. This is the ending of the Resurrection of Magneto miniseries, and it's brought back Magneto in a place where it's kind of taking the notion of every kind of iteration of Magneto that we've seen in the past, and it's really kind of bringing him to a point where he's learning from his past transgressions. He's learning from the mistakes he's made. He's growing. He's seeing the kind of person that he's been in all different eras of X-Men, whether it be the villainous side from the very onset of the series through when he was working with Cyclops up until the Krakoan era. So with Al Ewing writing on this, the notion is definitely going to be that it's narration heavy, and by no means is this any different than any other issue that he had done previously. The narration that's being shown here, though, is really kind of talking to the points that I was just spelling out here, with Magneto kind of reflecting on his life and reflecting on the things that he's gone through. In the previous issue, Magneto was fully resurrected. He's back amongst the world of the living, and he's really kind of taking the fight back to Orcus, and he's kind of punishing Orcus for the things that have, led to Krakoa being basically destroyed and the mutant population dwindling. He's kind of looking back, and he's, really reflecting on things, and he's looking towards the man he wants to be and the man he is going to be. And he's kind of seeing that there's no perfect version of that individual that he's trying to be. It's really going to be a melding of every iteration that we've seen in the past here. So the new Magneto that we see in the future hopefully is taking all of the good, leaving behind the bad, not necessarily the villainous bad, but the bad traits, and really becoming a full formed character. He's arguably one of the most interesting characters within the Marvel universe, and I'm happy to see where he's leaving off here. Now, the other aspect that comes into play here is the artwork by Luciano. Luciano is drawing a younger Magneto. He has a very clean line. It's very distinct. It's kind of like an all red esque approach where it's very distinct lines. There's no heavy cross hatching. There's no sketchiness to it whatsoever. It's a very, very clean style of artwork. And with that comes, like I was saying, a younger version of Magneto. We can kind of see the color is back in his hair. We can see a sleeker, slim version of the costume that we're normally used to. And I think it's really trying to convey not only his resurrection to back into the world of living, but just a changed character overall. He's matured, he is powered up again, and he's ready to take the fight back onto Orcus. So I'm excited to see where this is going to lead him into the next iteration of X-Men. But Resurrection of Magneto, what did you guys think? All right, next up from Marvel, we have Invincible Iron Man number 17, written by Jerry Duggan with artwork by Patrick Zurcher. So, this is actually a direct follow up to the actions that took place in Resurrection of Magneto number 4. The series of Invincible Iron Man has really been about the autobiographical notion of Tony Stark going through his memoirs, writing things out, and, kind of talking through the actions that are taking place here. And there's been a couple story beats throughout the time frame where he's discussed very specifically Magneto, due to the fact that what's his armor made of? Metal. It's kind of his weakness. So within this issue, we see that the Sentinel Buster that he had created has been completely destroyed. Tony's injured. It's kind of put Fei Long and Tony, head to head here. They're both kind of up against the ropes, one another. But we find out that Fei Long is definitely as smart as he is shown to be within these issues. He understands that Orcus has been using both mutant kind and humanity against one another so that they can achieve dominance. And it really kind of pits them against, it kind of takes these foes and doesn't necessarily make them allies, but it shows that maybe, they've definitely been putting their efforts towards the wrong things. That doesn't necessarily mean that the fight ends, though, and what ends up happening is Tony has to bring on an unlikely ally to help him out through these struggles. Um, Iron Man feels like more of an integral X book than honestly some of the mutant books that we've been getting month over month here. It's it's an oddity, I'll be honest with you. It's not necessarily what I've been looking for in an Iron Man book, but it hasn't been wholly unentertaining either. I've been along for the ride. It's not a book that I would highly recommend to anyone that's really not ingrained within the world of X-Men and definitely the Krakoan Age. But it was a worthwhile ride, and I can see where they're ramping up to, maybe end this arc and maybe end Jerry Duggan's reign on the title as well. But it's been interesting. The artwork in here, though, by Patrick Zurcher, it was excellent. It was fantastic, albeit it felt like it was drawn for the wrong book. The style that he conveys here, it's almost more something that I would want to see in like a Matt Kint book or something like that. There's a very classic approach, the use of Kirby Crackle, the action lines that are conveyed in the book, and just the classic overall style of his characterization, his caricature of these individuals that he's having to draw. It feels just a bit out of place here. Not bad drawing by any means. In fact, it was one of the better drawn books this week. It just didn't feel right for this book in particular, where I'd be looking for something definitely more action packed, definitely something more kinetic, moving, things like that. Good book, good artwork, interesting choices here. But with that being said, Invincible Iron Man, let me know what you were thinking. Next up, let's talk Ultimate X-Men #2, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. So this is a direct continuation of what we've seen in the previous issue. So Hisako, our main character, has befriended May, who I believe is going to be named May Storm as things progress. And they're really investigating the nature of the shadowy figure that is possibly the perpetrator of the murders that have been happening. And he's really been haunting Hisako, basically through a lot of different actions that have taken place in each issue. This leads them, by way of a note, to an abandoned schoolyard where they find out a little bit more about the shadowy figure. They see that there's more murders that have now taken place here, and we're kind of seeing the interconnectivity between the initial murder that's happened and maybe possibly the revenge plot of this shadowy figure. We don't know who it is necessarily, but we can kind of piece some of the parts together here and figure out exactly what's going on. We don't necessarily know who it is, but we can see why things are happening. Now, Peach is definitely very sparse in her narration and her dialogue. She really lets her visual storytelling do the heavy lifting on this. Anytime that there is dialogue, it's nice and it's neat, but it's absolutely only what is needed, nothing more. There is no embellishment whatsoever. She lets her pencils do the storytelling. And it's a nice approach. In a world where we have a lot of overly verbose books, this is definitely not one of them. It can be a breeze to get through if you don't let your eyes linger on the pages. Um, the only downside, though, is that there's two things in the title here that are going to be completely jarring for you if you're jumping into this. First one is Ultimate. This doesn't feel connected to anything that we've seen so far in the new onset of the Maker's Ultimate Universe, whether it be Ultimate Invasion, the new other books like Ultimate Spider-Man or Ultimate Black Panther. Those have interconnectivity. We kind of see some of the things with the other background characters that have come into play. This feels wholly to itself. This feels like the Momoko verse as opposed to the Ultimate Universe. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't have those same hooks that the other ones do that keep you coming back for more because you want to see how these characters are going to play with one another. Now, the other part of the title, X-Men, is the other jarring part, considering that this does not feel like an X-Men book. This maybe feels like it could have been a prelude to what could be an X-Men book. Now they're building, they've incorporated another character who has mutant abilities now, so we're, at a total of 3 at the very least. But again, there's no team of mutants. There is no, mansion in Westchester. There's no Krakoa. There's nothing like that. So it may be building towards a team, and Peach has said as much. It just feels like this is a prelude rather than the actual ongoing title. But that being said, it's been entertaining. It's gonna be kind of difficult if you're not already a Peach Momoko fan to, say that this is gonna be the book that makes you one. However, I think it's worthwhile. It's definitely something that's worth checking out here. But with that being said, Ultimate X-Men? Let me know what you're thinking. I spoke about some of the surprise picks on my pull list this week, and let's talk about one of them with DC's Action Comics 1064, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Rafa Sandoval. I'm so happy that this was a book that I've picked up. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm definitely a Marvel zombie. I try my best to sway away from that notion, but Marvel is just my bread and butter. And DC, it really has to be something special to get its hooks in me. This book got its hooks in me. So the onset of the issue is all about Lois Lane enjoying a day off, and that does not happen all that often. So the super family is kind of enjoying their day in, day out actions. They're going out to get brunch. Lois is going for a jog. They're getting ready to play softball in the fields. All of a sudden, there is a massive attack on Metropolis where an army of Lobos come down looking to capture superpowered people. This was a great jumping on point for any lapsed reader or any new reader looking to get into DC. My history with Superman is very few and far between. We're maybe talking All Star Superman by Grant Morrison, a Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. That's really all I've had. I've tried my best to get into it, but the Boy Scout nature of everything about him and his like 1 to 2 weaknesses, it makes him a hard character to relate to. Now, with his family, though, I can definitely see an inroad for all of that. And this story really carries that forward. It was really cool seeing every character have a little moment to shine, and really see the fear that Clark, as Superman, goes through as he sees one by one the superpowered individuals. Many of his family or extended family start getting captured by this army. Behind all of this is obviously Brainiac, considering that this whole arc, this event is going to be called the House of Brainiac. I'm excited to see where this goes. This was awesome, awesome writing. It was well paced, it was action packed. And what was really driving that action forward was the artwork by Rafa Sandoval. Wow. I've never seen his artwork before, but he immediately made me a fan. It was just hyper charged kinetic realism at its absolute best. It was just, I mean, every single issue had the weight behind it where you can feel, the whoosh of air as Superman flies by. You can feel the punches that are landing, between the Lobo army and the super characters. It was just awesome. The colors definitely helped. Everything popped. It was vivid. You see the bright neon greens of the Brainiac characters. You see the colors popping off of Superman's costume in the city, in the daytime, all around them. It was just an absolutely fantastic issue. It was very, very close to being my top pick of the week here. Definitely my favorite big two book that's come out this week. So, Action Comics, have you been reading it? Have you been following along with it? And are you along for the ride for House of Brainiac? Let me know. Jumping into indies, let's talk Napalm Lullaby #2, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Bengal. So this is the issue I was waiting for, to be honest. Issue one was a lot of foundation laying, but it felt like the cement was still wet. It didn't give you everything that you were wanted. You couldn't, put your feet down firmly and understand exactly where you were. This issue, very different. It built off of all of those notions that were set up in the previous issue. So our main protagonists, Sarah and Sam, brother and sister, they set forth their plan to infiltrate God's domain, and they're looking to kind of instigate this plan that is going to potentially take down this absolute power within their society that has kind of controlled every facet of their being. Right, it makes their choices for them. It's a totalitarian society where most of the people have just bought into it and they're going through their actions. It's Remender-isms through and through. We kind of find out the extension of their family through their father, who has fought against this in his own way, but it's kind of a fight that he knows is going to be a losing battle, as do Sam and Sarah. So, with that being said, they kind of draw him into the fight. They get his buy-in, and now they're all, a uniform, group that is going to take the fight forward. So Remender just continues to plays with these notions of like moral authority, the absolute corruption of power, while internalizing how easy those things can be even if you are the fighter against it, right? Everyone seems to have the notion that they have the right idea, they have the best approach forward. It's a very slippery slope, and he makes sure that the reader and the characters are conscious of that. It's never something like I have the right idea, the good guys always win. Good guys so quickly become bad guys. It's kind of like that famous quote from the Dark Knight movie. So he plays with that really well, and it's exciting to see how the characters are going to perceive that notion and maybe fall trap to it as well. The artwork by Bengal is very minimalistic and very clean, and I believe he is actually on color work too. And I think that the duties all falling on his shoulders can sometimes be a hindrance. And the reason I say that is because when there are panels, sometimes panels without backgrounds are a pleasant surprise, right? They kind of let the panel breathe. They don't make it too busy and feel claustrophobic. This is kind of the opposite of that, though. So the color work, specifically on the panels that don't have a lot of heavy background work, they just feel sparse and they feel like there's information missing, and it just kind of feels like floating heads. It's almost like what we're doing right now a little bit, just a talking head kind of notion. And it shouldn't feel that way because it definitely isn't. This should be a conversation between characters. We should see the actions taking place, and there should be something that draws our eyes in, that kind of shows us to make those, the Z basically to, to follow panel by panel by panel. It's a little bit lacking in there. The artwork itself is good. I just think that maybe there should be more time taken in really spelling all of that kind of stuff out and making it visually pleasing on every single panel, rather than maybe leaving a little bit light on that. So, with that being said, it was a welcome addition for Napalm Lullaby. I really enjoyed this much more than the first issue, and I'm excited to see where this goes, but I'm more excited to hear what you're thinking about it. Let me know. Next up from Image, we have Phantom Road number 10, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Gabriel Hernandez Walta. So after the revelations of the previous issue, we've seen our main players are just like racked with trauma. Not only that, but their trauma is right there out on the open. They've kind of experienced what each other has gone through within their lives, and like the terrible hardships. And like hardships is not even the right word, but it's everything that they've had to experience, with our main truck driver character losing his son, and with our passenger character with the things that she had to deal with, right? With the abuse that she went through, being brought up in a religious background, specifically within the church. We've seen that they're dealing with the fact that they know one another's background, and that's it's making them closer, even though it feels like it could be pulling them apart right now. Furthermore, in the real world, we're also seeing that Agent Weaver, while she's investigating all of the mysteries and murders that are occurring due to what's happening in this shadowy zombie world, it's showing that maybe there's some interconnectivity between what she experienced as a child and what she's investigating now. So, the biggest visual pleasure that I have with this book is the distinction between the real world and this shadowy zombie world where they're delivering this egg child thing. The real world, everything is very clean, very distinct. There's the color work stays within the lines. It is very, very bold, crisp, and clean. The same artist is working on it, but when we move over to that shadowy zombie world, everything is very sketchy. It's almost like a watercolor aspect. The colors bleed between one another. Nothing is crisp. Nothing is like definitely like it doesn't look like a completed piece of work so much as it looks like first second draft kind of stuff with intention. And it's a really nice storytelling technique that's put on play here, because it lets us know very easily who we're dealing with, what's at play, and it kind of just keeps us in tune with what's going on in the book. Now, the other aspect with those color work that I was talking about between the real world and the shadow world, Jordi Belair has done a really fantastic job using color to convey emotion and feelings throughout these panels. specifically towards the end of the issue, there's bright reds that are being used, and it just oozes this feeling of dread, this emotion of terror that is taking place. And she's just done a fantastic job on this entire series, let alone this book. But this issue definitely stood out to me. Phantom Road has been fantastic. I can't wait for it to come back. They are on a hiatus right now as they get ready for the next arc. But with that being said, Phantom Road, fantastic issue. Let's talk my second surprise pick this week. Let's go ahead and talk about Transformers number 7, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, with artwork by Jorge Corona for the first time. So this was just robotic brutality. Starscream and Soundwave are fighting for Decepticon dominance. Now that Megatron has been off of the playing field for a while, and RC is really kind of working with the Autobots and trying to plot their next moves as they figure out what the next thing is going to be taking place. Now that they kind of went through a one battle, but they've kind of lost some ranks. So if you would not have told me that Daniel Warren Johnson wasn't drawing this book, I quite frankly would not have known the difference. Jorge Corona's artwork is every bit as kinetic and sketchy and action packed and just charged as every single thing that I've seen from Daniel Warren Johnson, not only in Transformers, but in previous books as well. So you can definitely see that there's been a notion of keeping things cohesive, and not making something so jarring that we usually see with big two books when a fill-in artist comes in. So Jorge Corona, as I know, is going to be the new ongoing artist on this series, at least for this arc, and I'm enthused. I'm excited to see where he takes this because I think he's bringing the same qualities that we had seen previously and kind of just really following that through. So as a casual Transformers fan like myself, I got to be honest. Issue 1 didn't do it for me. It was a fun issue. Every Energon issue number 1 has been good, whether it be Duke or Void Rivals or Transformers, but none have been enough to really get its hooks in me. And I'll be honest with you, it's probably just due to the fact that none of these really had that inherent quality as a child that where I was like a big fan of these things. I honestly didn't watch Transformers all that much. I owned a Bumblebee toy. That was just about it. This issue did something different, though. For the first time, I feel like I cared about the characters that were in play. For the first time, I mean, I really felt I felt emotional towards what they were dealing with, the hardships that they went through, the loss of rank that they actually had dealt with. And even on the Decepticon side, the struggle, right, the fight for dominance was really it was just brutal. Like, I mean, they did not hold back anything. If this were a human on human fight, this would have been an R-rated kind of fight. I mean, it was just really it was brutal. I can't think of a better word to describe it. It made for a really action-packed story, and it made for something that was really, really entertaining. Though it was just so surprising. I'm glad I picked this up. This might make me go back and pick up issues 2 through 6 to get caught up on this. But with that being said, Transformers number 7, runner up of the week. All right, with my top comic this week, let's talk a new number 1, Uncanny Valley number 1, written by Tony Fleeks with artwork by David Walker. So this has been a really awesome book so far. It's been Harry Potter meets Terminator meets Roger Rabbit. It was just so bizarre and fun as the story unravels. It definitely had me panel by panel, page by page. It didn't take long for me to be totally wrapped up in this world and these characters. So Fleeks immediately writes these enduring, sympathetic characters, specifically with the child here. Everyone's gone through bullying, or not even necessarily bullying, but just being the peer pressure that a child goes through in school and some of the choices that they make, especially being new to an environment. He just like draws you in. He knows exactly what heartstrings to pull, and you just identify with this character. Furthermore, if you're a parent, you can definitely identify with some of the other aspects of this, specifically his mother, as he deals with kind of the hardships he's going through, flow through to the hardships of the mother as she's trying to deal with the things that he's going through. all the while keeping this kind of secret in tow that the child doesn't know about yet, but is quickly revealed as the issue goes on. So the artwork in this is really fantastic because just like I was talking about in Phantom Road, as they go through two different worlds, this is two different worlds melding into one another. So we see the more realistic side of just the human characters as they go through their day-to-day lives, but it does not take long all of a sudden to have these 2D cartoon creatures kind of come into play with this, and that's where the Roger Rabbit aspect of this all comes in too, where it does not feel out of place for these two different visual styles to be playing within one another, just like in Roger Rabbit. They do so in a way where everything is cohesive and it melds together, and you can see how how these two types are working together. I think the color work really goes a long way into drawing that in. Whereas the real world has a shaded quality to it. You could definitely see the pencil work that carries through where it's shading all of these things. The cartoon characters definitely have the old school Hanna-Barbera, Looney Tunes style where it is a very 2D color type as well. There is not a lot of shading. It's got maybe 2 to 3 colors on it, but they're choosing color palettes that play within one another. So it definitely makes it feel as if it's taking place in a cohesive world. I think it was a really smart choice to do that, to really make sure that everything felt like it was in the same world working together. It could have definitely taken like a more vibrant approach on the cartoon characters, and I feel like that would have drawn us out of it, and it would have maybe felt like an overlay on top of the book or the world that we're really seeing. So really smart choices. So the issue ends with kind of the Terminator aspect of it, where the Yosemite Sam character, which we find out is the grandfather of the child within this book, kind of puts his hand out and says, "Come with me if you want to live." He takes that call to action, and they're off and on their way. It was an incredible introductory issue. It's definitely got me along for the ride already. I want to find out all the inner workings of this world, why they're after this child, and kind of what it means to be born between the real world and the cartoon world and how that even takes place. So, Uncanny Valley, top pick of the week, but I'm more interested. Let me know what you're thinking, and did you pick this up? So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm curious. What did you read and what were your thoughts on the books that you picked up? Like, share, and subscribe on this if you found some enjoyment out of it, and be part of the panel by leaving a comment down below. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you later.